Where in our life are we complaining? Where in our life are we not trusting in God and not believing in God to do the things, to part the Red Sea so we can walk on dry land, to move the mountains, to make the miracles, to send the breakthroughs, to do the healing? Where in our life have we given up on God and now we become hopeless? Like, just like the Israelites, they literally seen God do all these miracles, take them out of slavery, literally, quite literally, part the Red Sea so that they can walk on dry land and watch their enemies be drowned in the same water that they was able to walk through. And then God had them walking through the wilderness. God was supplying their daily needs, their daily food and drink. He was keeping them safe. He was with them. He was showing them signs and miracles through the whole entire way. But some of them never made it to the promised land. Some of them never made it to the land of milk and honey because they lost their faith in God. They lost their trust in God. They start complaining and groaning and moaning and murmuring about God. They started not seeing him as the Holy One, the creator of heaven and earth, the one who will take care of them, the one who will supply all their needs, the God who will make it work out. They stopped believing in that God and they just start complaining because they didn't have what they wanted at the moment. They couldn't see the vision. They couldn't see the land of milk and honey. They couldn't see the promised land. All they seen, we're stuck here in this wilderness. God, you took us out of slavery and now where you got us? What we doing now? They were saying they literally would wish they were back in slavery. That's how much complaining they was doing. They saying, hey, it would better be back in slavery than to be right here in the wilderness with God, where God is actually providing for us, where God is actually leading us and guiding us. You know what I'm saying? So we have to look over our life. Where in our life are we still complaining and murmuring? Where in our life are we not trusting in God and not believing God, even though we've seen him do miracles, even though we've seen him do breakthroughs, even though we've seen him elevate us and transform us and evolve us in our lives and the lives of others? Where have we given up all hope just because it's not happening when we want it or when we think it should happen? We need to take account of that and ask for forgiveness and repent and come out of agreement with the complaining spirit, because we don't want to miss the promised land. We don't want to miss the land of milk and honey just because we're busy complaining, so we're not seeing what God is doing. We're busy not leaning on him, not trusting him, and trusting on our own understanding and getting ourselves caught up in some mess and never making it into that promised land that God has set out for us. Never going into that land of milk and honey that God has already predestined and preordained for us, laid out for us. But we have to go into it with the right mindset. We have to go into it ready. They wasn't ready. A lot of them didn't make it there because they just lost faith in God. They didn't trust him. They didn't regard him in the high regard that he needed. They didn't reverence him. They didn't have the respect for him anymore. They wasn't trusting him. They didn't fear him. They were complaining against him. They didn't trust what he was doing in their lives. And sometimes we don't know what God is doing. And sometimes we don't know how he's moving